Do you want to add an all-in-one inclusive head tracking experience into any RC car that you have? Do you want to turn playtime from this into this? Let's get into it. Welcome back to Inverted Aviators RC. Right off the bat, I want to say thank you to our members. You guys are the reason we're able to do these fun projects. And we're really excited for this one. And you might be thinking, you guys are Inverted Aviators RC. This clearly does not look like a plane, but we wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. One, it's really cool to add head tracking onto any sort of project that just needs a battery. Everything else is completely included. We also want to design this to put onto all sorts of planes. We wanted a super small, tiny, lightweight, and all-in-one system. So without any further ado, let's get into this build process. So what are we going to need to build this nice little system? Well, first, our receiver is an EP2, a 3-channel receiver that we changed to PWM. There is a tutorial that we follow to change this from its normal serial output to PWM signals, and I'm just going to link that tutorial because he does a great job explaining it, and I want to give credit where credit is due. We did not figure out how to do this. We watched a tutorial, so we use an EP2 receiver with that tutorial. Then we're going to need a 5-volt regulator. I'll link it in the description. What we have, this is a Maytech 6 to 30 volt input, 5-volt regulator, helps us get power to everything. Then we're going to need two 2-gram servos, one for the pan, one for the tilt. They're super cheap and easy, and we also use the arms that come with these servos to make this gimbal on top. Super cheap, super easy. And then we're going to need our favorite camera, the Wolfwhoop WT03 camera. It comes with an adapter wire that we use to plug into the 5-volt regulator, and this whole system is very, very cheap and affordable. And then whatever battery connector you want, we used an XT30. That's just because it plugs into the spare battery port from this battery that isn't used in this RC car. And I will also link the car that we used, but if you have any sort of micro electronic thing that you want to add this camera to, it is tiny, it is small, you can totally add it onto whatever thing you want. Now, you're also going to need a head tracking system. Now, we did make a tutorial on how to do this yourself. It looks like this. This is our head tracker. If you want to, again, do it yourself, there is a link in the description and on screen on how to make this whole system. If you don't want to make it yourself, there's a link to our shop where you can buy it from us. We will make it on screen. And there's a whole tutorial on how to set up your transmitter, your head tracker, everything. But this head tracker pairs perfectly with this head tracking system, and it's all super nice, easy, compact, and that's all you need. So let's keep on moving. Here's a pretty rough proof of concept on how this whole system is going to work. We're going to be using a LiPo 450 milliamp 2-cell 7.4 volt battery. Now the most important part here is the 7.4 volts. All of the electronics in this system uses 5 volts. The EP2, the servo, and the camera all like 5 volts. So our first step is running it through a nice 5-volt regulator. From there, we have a Y splitter, which provides power both to the EP2 as well as the servo. And then we have the signal output from our EP2 going out into the servo channel so that we're able to control our servo. So if we bring our transmitter into the scene here and power up our receiver, we can see that we can control this servo with our transmitter through this tiny receiver. Now, the system does work and it is cool, but if our car is this big, this whole system is kind of huge. So how can we make this system smaller? First thing we're going to change is this really big 5-volt regulator. Now it does work fine for bigger planes, but since we have such a small RC car, let's get something a little bit smaller. So as you can see, these are 3 5-volt regulators, and this is a Maytech 2 to 6 cell micro 5-volt BEC. As you can see on here, we've got our 6 to 30 volt input, which is perfect because we know it's 2 cells, and if we have at minimum about 3.4 to 3.5 volts per cell, that means we're always going to be above this 6 volt minimum, and that'll save us a lot of size and weight. So if we just take one of these instead of all 3 of them, you can see we'll be saving a lot of weight. And I'm also going to be trading out these kind of thicker gauge wires on this XT30 to something a little bit smaller again, just to save some weight. And next, we've got to deal with this Y lead and all of this crazy wires going on up into our EP2. We don't want that. We want as small as wires as possible. And I also want to incorporate these two 2-gram servos into this mix, one for pan, one for tilt. We're not going to use a 9-gram servo because, once again, that's huge compared to our car that we're working on. So we're just going to have to cut these wires because you see we have the standard servo setup for these. We're going to have to attach the red and the black onto these red and black output pins and kind of stick them together. And then after that, all we need to do is attach the camera and we should be good to go. So now we've got our two servos all connected up. As you can see, they're just both going red wire to 5-volt out, black wire to ground. We just both have them connected to the same pads. And we have our two signal wires just hanging up because our next step is taking our EP2 off of this current system and connecting it here. So all we're going to do is power the red and the black into the same red and black. And then we're going to connect these yellow wires to different pads on this EP2. All right, we got our EP2 all soldered up. Again, it's just red to red, black to black, just like all of the other wires. Now you can see there's these two tiny pads here on the end. That's where these yellow wires are going to connect. So it's just going to be a nice quick connect there, connect there. It doesn't really matter which goes where because we can configure what channels go to what servos on our transmitter. So for now, we're just going to connect either wire to either. And just like that, we've got our signal wires from our servos connected to the EP2. Let's see how this looks when connected to the transmitter. But first, really quick housekeeping tip. Before you plug anything in for the first time, take your multimeter, put it into continuity mode, and touch red and black pads to make sure there's no sound. So you can see, I'm going to take red and black. I'm going to touch the ground and the 6-volt. I'm going to touch the ground and the input. We have nothing. I'm going to also touch the output and the other ground pad. Nothing. I'm going to touch the two ground pads. We hear stuff. That's fine because the ground's connected. But just making sure we don't accidentally hear anything. And now the input and output should not be connected at all. So I'll touch both of those. We have no sound. Again, just touch all your pads to make sure there's no short circuiting and you're not going to release the funny black smoke before we even get into it. Now for the moment of truth, we make sure that there's no continuity between pads that shouldn't exist, so we're going to plug this in. And immediately we've got connection over here. We got one moving on this servo and one moving on that servo. So that's perfect, meaning we have everything being controlled, everything being powered. The only thing left we've got to do is harness these in a way that makes it look like a head tracker, as well as attach the camera. But other than that, we're in good shape. Before we fully assemble this system, we're going to need to build the gimbal that will attach both these servos together. Now, if you bought the same servos that I did, they will come with a bag of servo horns, and we're going to need to use these two single-sided horns in order to build our gimbal. So these horns are going to go together, one facing down, so it can be the pan servo, and the other is going to face in like this, facing inwards so it can control the other servo. So I'm going to take this side and cut this bottom side so it's flat, but I want to cut as little off as possible, right? Instead it's rounded, I want it to be flat because flat is going to be a lot easier to fasten these two together. So I'm just going to take, I think, a wire cutters, as you can see here, and just cut a tiny bit off so it's flat instead of rounded. There we go. And I might even sand it just a little bit more just to make sure it's completely flat before we go on to the next step. There we go. As you can see, it's all nice and flat. I'm just going to apply a little bit of hot glue to the bottom here. And we're trying to stick it on straight up and down. I'm going to let this cool, and I'm going to add more hot glue on the outside edge and the inside corner just to really try to strengthen up this joint, because this is what's going to house our top servo as well as our camera. The initial assembly is going to be super easy. I'm going to first plug in our whole system in order to center the servos. And I already have my transmitter turned on, so this light is going to blink for a second. And we'll hear that everything is connecting. And again, we can test to make sure everything is still moving. But this is going to be my bottom servo. It has a little bit shorter wires so that all these can be wrapped around. But I'm going to put this gimbal so that it is facing to the left, as you can see here. I'm going to try to put that in as straight as possible so that it is centered when we screw everything together. But as you can see now, that is a right angle. That looks great. I'm going to repeat that process for this top servo. And again, we want it to be as flat and as 90 degrees as possible, because if this is centered, that means we are centered from the get-go. So now we've got our gimbal system here. We've got our little wires out of the way. And if we move our transmitter around, we've got a little left to right. We got a little up and down movement. We have a whole head tracking system right here. This is all you need to add in order to get 2 channels of head tracking. It's super simple. It's super easy. Now, we're not done yet. We still can screw in these gimbals, or we can screw in the gimbal to the servos here and down here. We can also fasten these down, but for right now, we are looking really, really good. So our next step is going to be attaching a camera onto this top servo, and we're going to be using our favorite Wolfwhoop WT03 camera, and thankfully it comes with a little adapter wire which we can cut in half and use to solder onto our 5-volt regulator. I'm going to secure the camera to the top servo with a little double-sided tape. It's going to be a little piece on the top here that's going to stick to the bottom of this camera, and then we can route the wire and see how much we need in order to attach it. All right, camera is secure, and you can see we have a nice long lead that you could probably just cut this wire and attach it, but I like leaving this adapter in place. In case something happens to the camera, it's a lot easier to just pull the camera off, put a new one in, and not have to resolder. So I'm going to take this adapter, plug it into the end here, and then we can probably just cut this right around here, and we just need to weave it around and attach to these positive and negative leads on this side. We should be all attached and ready to go.
Sparkly. Ooh.
Once again, before powering this up for the first time, I'm going to go through with my multimeter and just make sure I've got no continuity where I don't want it. I think we should be good to go. And for our initial test, we have a screen here which will show the camera feed. We got our transmitter, which should control the servos, and then I'm just going to plug in and see what happens. So we have a feed coming from our camera, and I don't think the servos have connected quite yet because it'll give a little blink. You can see the green light from the servos, so here we go. And then we can control with our servo, or we can control with our transmitter, and just like that, we've got a tiny micro head tracking system all built into this tiny little thing. Now, we're not done yet. There's a couple more things I want to do. Right now, this is connected to a transmitter. I want to connect it to my head tracker that's attached to my goggles. Super easy thing to do. We already have a tutorial on how to do that, but I'm still going to show it. Then I want to clean up these wires a little bit, make this thing as compact as possible. And last but not least, I'm going to put it onto our drift car and have a really fun experience. So let's get into it. And what do I mean by wire cleanup? Well, as you can see, if I were to double-sided tape this 5-volt regulator to one side and the receiver to the other side, we'd have just a lot of spare wires moving around, and I think I could do better. Do I need to do better? No. But do I think I can? Absolutely. So I'm going to try to just tinker with this and maybe even flip this 5-volt regulator to the other side and try to clean up all of these wires. And my goal is to be a really clean, small system that maybe I could even heat shrink just straight over the bottom, just to make it as clean and as safe as possible. So I'm just going to tinker with this, and I'll try to get everything on camera just so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll explain it all at the end. So I'm just going to go over my thoughts and processes during this tinker time, and we're going to start by just taking everything off of the 5-volt regulator because I wanted the board to be a little bit better positioned. You can see I scraped the surface of the servo with some sandpaper and cut off the tabs of the bottom servo just to reduce some weight, and I sandpapered the sides in order to make the double-sided tape stick a little bit better. And so you can see I did this to both sides in a little bit of sandpaper and then the double-sided tape, and then fastened the receiver to one side and the 5-volt regulator to the other side. And now I did this for two reasons. One, it secures everything in place, makes it really easy, but it also allows me to see exactly how long I need these wires to be. And instead of having all these dangling wires, I can cut these wires exactly to the right length, so I can wrap it from the 5-volt regulator to the receiver, the other servos. I can also get those yellow signal wires in exact length to those two pads that they need to go. And then it just makes it easier long term. And I can also add some heat shrink later on down the road if I want to. But as you can see, I'm now just trying to get these exact length of wires wrapping around the whole board, leaving a little bit of slack. I don't need it to be tight and taut with all the wires to the pads, but I am making it as close as I can because there's really no need to waste any wire on these bottom electronics. Now for the top servo, I am going to need to add a little bit of slack into the mix because, of course, this top servo does move around, so there does need to be a little bit of wiggle room. And again, I am using a multimeter to test continuity. I didn't just say that for the sake of the video. I do test my electronics a lot before plugging them in just to be safe. And once again, I'm centering this top gimbal arm so that I can lock it in place with a screw, and I know that it's exactly centered just so that we won't have to do as much trimming down the road. But this is where I am trimming these top servo lengths to be the exact right distance with a little bit of slack. So you can see it's not a straight line. There is a little bit of curve to these wires just so it can swivel around without pinching any of the wires. And likewise with the black and the red wires do need a little bit of slack, but again, since this 5-volt regulator is fastened to the bottom servo, it's pretty easy to tell how long I need to make these wires. This is a little bit of an annoying process because there are 4 wires going to the same pad, so it just takes a little bit of time, takes a very small soldering tip, and just like that, our new and improved head tracking system is just about done. Now I think we can all agree that this looks a lot nicer. All of these wires are nice and tight and tucked in and go exactly where they need to go without any extra wires. The only annoying part is that we have to have a little bit of slack for this camera to move all the way around. If I could make them shorter, I would, but this is pretty much as short as we can get. The next thing we need to do is set up our transmitter, at least the travels of these servos, because we don't want this top servo to look too far down and accidentally bump into this bottom pin. But other than that, this is looking pretty darn good. The first step to setting up your endpoints is making sure your midpoint is set. As you can see right now, this is tilted slightly down, but I don't know if I need to move this top servo up or if I need to swivel the whole thing around. So what I'm going to do is initially plug in power, because that's going to automatically center the servos. All we have to do is wait for them to snap into place. All right, so as you can see, this is center, but I'm a little down. I really want it to be about here, centered. So I'm going to take this servo off from the hinge and try to center it up as best as I can. So now, is it a little up? As close as I can. Now, it might not be perfect, right? We might have to do a little bit of the computer trim. Yeah, that's about as good as we can do. So now that it's in there, I'm going to take the other screw that comes with your servo horns. If you bought the same servos, there'll be a little screw in there. And once I know it's about as good as I can get mechanically, I'm going to screw it in place. So now that I got it all locked in mechanically, we can switch over to our transmitter and make sure we're not accidentally having this look too far down, because if I take this and have it pointed down, it bottoms out, and we don't want to accidentally do that as we're looking because it'll slowly mess with the whole system. So we're going to go into the model, we're going to go over again. We're looking for the output channels. So we got output, and now the up and down is what we're working with here. So that's going to be, you can see up here, this is where we're going to determine if we're on the right channel. So we got nothing. Oh, now we're moving. Are we? No. Oh, that's the left and right. Right, channel 3. Yes, okay. So as we go down, we want it to not get all the way to 2000. So we're going to click into it, edit, and we want the max to, let's bring it maybe down to 90. Let's try 95. And just see how far that brings us. See, now we can't reach that bottom piece. I go all the way up and we're still a little bit of clearance. I think that's what we want. Moving all the way left and all the way right are just fine. So I think all we needed to do to fix this was just trim it a little and we should be good. And we can also set the middle of our servo. So as you can see right now, mechanically it's a little up, but we want to set that middle position. So we can go in and set the sub trim. I want to trim this so that, see, it's slowly pitching itself up, but now we want to go the other way. We're going to scroll until we are flat. So now we go up, we're good. We go down, we're good. And we do nothing, we're right in the middle, looking straight. That's exactly what we want. For our transmitter setup, we need to see what channels are currently being used to control our receiver. So if we go into our model that we're currently using, we hit model, we scroll over to the outputs tab and find which channel we're using. Channel 2 controls our left to right movement and channel 3 controls our up and down movement. So we are going to page back to the inputs and we are going to delete all of these, because we are no longer going to be controlling these with the aileron stick or the rudder stick or whatever sticks you want. These are going to be controlled via our head tracker. We're also going to delete them out. Well, actually, we can leave them in mixes. But as you can see now, we should be getting no movement because we unbound this stick from those two channels. Once we've deleted all of our inputs, we're going to go back to our main menu, click Model, Page Over. And this is very important. We got to make sure that our trainer is turned on to master and jack, which means the master is going to be our head tracker, and we're going to be using the audio jack port in order to get that signal into our receiver. So once we have master and jack, we can go back out and back to the inputs tab. We're going to go down to channel 2, because remember channel 2 was what controlled our left to right movement. We can long press, go down to source, long press, find trainer, and we're going to make this trainer 2, because again, we want the second channel to be our left and right. Once we're done, we can hit return, return, down to input 3, which we are going to make the trainer channel 3. Now we're still not going to be getting any input because again, we've unbound these from our transmitter. We are waiting for our head tracker, which if you're looking for this head tracker and you're going, I wonder where he bought it. Well, we have a tutorial on how to make it yourself. We also have a shop where you could buy one where we will make it on stream for you and send it to you. So if you're looking for this really cool head tracker, check the link on screen as well as the link in the description. But if we want to then see how this works, we're going to have to plug in some power, which this adapter also comes with it if you buy it. We can give this system power. Actually, I don't even need this adapter if we're just testing the head tracker. We can plug in directly the battery for these goggles. We'll go into this slot. And I'll even expand this out so you can see more. Power to there. And then we're also going to need our jack that I was talking about earlier. This is just a standard audio jack, as you can see, which goes into our head tracker piece. And it also goes into the audio jack port on the back of your transmitter. And that is a stipulation for this to work. You will need a transmitter with a audio jack on the back. I believe it is this one. So if I then power on this head tracker,
trainer connected.
We have a trainer that's connected, which is great because it is now talking with this head tracker. And if we move to the left, you can see our head tracker moving to the left. We move to the right. We got it moving to the right. Up goes up and down goes down. So that's looking really good because you can see we can look all around. It's tracking our head. And again, this whole system is right here. It's tiny. It can fit onto any plane. And so I'm super excited. Let's throw this onto the car and see how it works. As you can see, this is super fun. It was awesome to try to get it set up, and if you're wondering how I got it connected to this car, it's really just one piece of double-sided sticky tape. Nothing special, I put it right on top. And it held together really well. And a couple things I'm super stoked about this project is that, one, it can take hits like that. I just bonked straight into that table leg, and it held up just fine, and that was probably because it's hitting the bumper, not the whole system. But it does have a little bit of rigidity built in. But I just really like how simple it is, and I'm sitting up on the stairs kind of behind me, and the camera signal is great. That's expected because these Wolf Whoop cameras are really, really good at what they do. But it's so much fun. I don't have that much space to work with here, but still having such a small drift car running on a 2-cell battery that's also powering 2 servos and a head tracker, like, that's so cool. And I love this part of the hobby, the tinkering aspect, getting all these little projects, and I love seeing the tires in there. On the second battery, I tilt the camera a little further down. So if you're doing this yourself, I'd maybe suggest trimming your camera so you can see your tires, because it's just really cool to see the tires as you're drifting around. But it's just so much fun, and I really liked how small this is. So again, if you're wanting to do this, and you don't want to put it on a car, by all means, put it on a plane. We're going to do this. We're going to make videos putting this on the UMX Crescendo, maybe even doing a version 2 of the IA Evo, which was our original head tracking system. And instead of gutting the entire thing out and putting in a new receiver with new servos and everything, all we have to do is add this 13-gram system onto the top of a plane and you've got head tracking. Like, that sounds awesome. And it's a lot better than my previous solution. So that's one of my favorite things. And I also really like how the camera isn't too wobbly. I was kind of worried that using the servo horns hot glued together would make the camera all kind of wiggle and wobble, and I would have to 3D print a servo arm that was dedicated for this system. But turns out this runs just fine on the 2 glued together servo horns, and it makes the experience even cheaper because you don't have to buy anything else. You just use what comes with these servos. And that's also what I like about it, is that it's cheap. Everything's pretty easy to come by, and it creates a very nice output, and it's just fun ripping around here. Yeah, I can keep talking about it because it's so much fun and it's so cool, and I even like the idea we've got bigger RC cars, and it'd be a super easy addition to take this system and even split the camera into split the Wolf Whoop system into the camera and the VTX, and I could put the camera right in the windshield and have the VTX sticking out the back that's out of the way. But it's just so easy to put together. You can see here, this is when I tilted the camera down. You can see the wheels, and I just love this. Like, it's so cool to see the wheels turning and it all moving together in tandem. And it turns out I moved my head a lot less than I thought I would driving this little car, just because there's so little space. There's tight corners to make, but you can see you can get under the edges of the cabinets and just things you wouldn't see normally, and you can also run into things pretty hard. But it's just the whole system is so small and so rigid and so much fun. And I really enjoyed it. And so if you are looking to get this system for yourself and put it into your own plane or your own system, your own whatever, feel free to do it yourself. Hopefully this tutorial was easy enough to follow by yourself. If you don't want to do it yourself, check out our shop link where you can buy it. I'll build it, put it together, do it all live on stream, and then ship it out as soon as possible. These are all made to order, so I don't stockpile any of these. Once you buy it, I will build it, ship it out. Again, I would suggest buying the head tracking system and the head tracker. Both are really cool, and they work together super easily, super well. That was by design. We don't want any hardships down the road for you once you buy these. But again, this speaks for itself. It's super cool. It's super fun to work with. That's my wife. But other than that, it's super fun. Feel free to reach out and ask if you have any questions. Join our Discord. Ask comments in the YouTube comment section. If you have questions on how to do it, if things aren't working right, please let me know, because we don't want any annoyances with this system. It's super easy, super fun. So I'll just let you listen to this last little bit of drifting around, and I did crash at the very end, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, that's our system so far. So here's my final thoughts on this tiny system. Right off the bat, it's really cool. I love how it's so small and you can really fit it on any plane. Got a little scale here, and coming in at just over 13 grams, you can really fit that onto any plane you want. And I'm planning on adding this onto a couple planes because it's so tiny. It's so cool, and I love how this is a completely enclosed system minus a battery. So all you need to do is apply power, and as long as your transmitter has Edge TX, you can really use it in tandem with whatever transmitter you're using. If you have a Spectrum receiver and a transmitter that can both send out Edge TX and Spectrum, you can control this with one transmitter, making it really, really cool and easy. So I love that about this whole system. I am also contemplating putting heat shrink tubing, just one piece right around this bottom end. I don't know if I will, just because I don't want it to heat up too much. Now, if it is being powered by 2S, it should be fine. But there are like mesh heat shrink tubing that has a little more airflow. I would really like to enclose all of this just because it would secure all the wires. But at the moment, I might just leave it exposed. A little more airflow might keep it a little cooler, especially if it's on the top of a plane. It should be just fine. If you're looking to support the channel, this will be available on our store. We will build it live on stream like I do with all the other products that we sell, but it is a really cool product and it pairs really, really well with our head tracker that we also sell. So if you're looking to add FPV head tracking to any plane that you want, I would suggest buying one of these and buying one of our head trackers as well. They pair together very nicely, they work well, and it's super cool. So thank you so much for watching. This has been Inverted Aviators RC. Stick around if you want to see this being added to a whole bunch of different planes, because I think it's really cool. And let me know what other projects you want me to work on, because I had a blast with this one. And thank you so much for watching. Stick around for the next one.